I was branded a family failure by my own brother until his fiancée saw my Forbes cover. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day my world turned upside down. I stood in the kitchen, hands trembling as I poured a cup of coffee. The bitter aroma filled the air, mingling with the chaos that swirled around me. My heart pounded. I could feel it in my throat, a lump that clawed its way up, threatening to spill over. The silence was deafening. Just moments ago, the happiest weekend of my life had shifted into something darker, and my brother, Caleb, loomed in the doorway. His expression was cold, eyes filled with disappointment. "You're a failure, you know that?" He had said. The words sliced through me like glass. In that moment, I felt the weight of my choices crashing down. I had thought I was finally taking a step forward, chasing my dreams, but apparently, the Forbes recognition meant nothing to him. It was just another reminder of my unworthiness in his eyes. My chest tightened as I recalled the look on his fiancée's face when she first saw the cover. Her eyes widened in disbelief, like she had stumbled upon a hidden treasure. I could almost see the gears turning in her mind. Was this the same girl who had once been ridiculed at family dinners? Her soft, sympathetic smile haunted me now. What has she done? I could hear the whispers, the judgments, the way people talk behind closed doors. I left the kitchen, footsteps echoing in the eerie stillness of our home. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage as Caleb's words replayed in my mind. The walls felt like they were closing in. Each step took me further away from the dreams I fought so hard for. I thought of my mom, her tears when she saw my name in print for the first time, the pride glowing in her eyes. But that pride felt distant now, overshadowed by my brother's disdain. And then there was the news. A sudden twist. My phone buzzed relentlessly in my pocket. I pulled it out, trembling hands scanning the screen. A message from Caleb. "You should have thought of us before you went public." My heart plummeted. What did he mean? What was I overlooking? The very foundation of our family felt threatened, and I had suddenly become the villain. But there was a flicker of hope in that chaos. I could hear my best friend Mia, her voice soft but firm. "You can't let them win," she would say with fire in her eyes. I clung to that thought of fragile light in the enveloping darkness. Maybe I could bridge this gap, find a way to turn their judgment into understanding. But how? The knot in my stomach tightened as uncertainty loomed over me. I could feel a shift in the air, a potent mix of fear and resolve coursing through me. Everything was unfolding like a dark mystery, and I was at the center, wrestling with shadows that threatened to swallow me whole. Would I ever find redemption? Or was I destined to wear the label of failure forever? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I woke up in the middle of the night, the weight of frustration and despair hovering over me like a thick fog. The past few days had felt like a montage of contrasting realities, moments of joy intertwined with hushed conversations and sidelong glances. I turned on the bedside lamp, the sudden light illuminating the starkness of my room. My phone buzzed again, pulling me from the spiral of my thoughts. With hesitation, I reached for it. A message from Mia. "You good? Let's grab coffee tomorrow." A small smile crept onto my face. Her unwavering support had become a lifeline. But even with her encouragement, doubt gnawed at my insides. Was I really good? Did I even know what that meant anymore? The next day unfolded slowly, weighed down by a hesitance that clung to my every move. As I walked into the cafe, the comforting aroma of freshly ground coffee beans was a small solace in the chaos of my thoughts. I spotted Mia at our usual table, her bright red lipstick a beacon of familiarity. She hailed me with a warm smile. "Hey, you look like you've seen a ghost." She laughed lightly, but I could see the concern etched on her face. "Or a family failure," I said, my attempt at humor falling flat as I settled into the chair. Mia didn't miss a beat. "Enough of that. What did Caleb say this time?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. Fierce like a protective sister, I recounted the messages, my voice shaky as the words spilled out. Each phrase weighed heavily as I articulated Caleb's relentless disappointment. After I finished, an uncomfortable silence enveloped us. I could hear the soft clatter of cups around us, but in that moment, it felt like only I existed in a bubble of anguish. "Look," Mia said slowly, leaning forward, "Caleb is wrapped up in his own expectations. You stepping out and finding your voice unsettled him. It's not your failure. It's his fear." Her words penetrated deeper than I anticipated, nudging at the wounds I didn't realize were still open. I looked out of the cafe window, watching patrons catch up over steaming mugs, laughter ringing through the air. A sense of longing washed over me. Amidst their joy, I felt utterly alone. Sure, I had my career, my achievements, but everything felt like a facade in the light of Caleb's harsh words. The joy was eclipsed, and even MIA's warmth could only shield me for so long before I craved deeper connection. Should I reach out to him? I asked, a flicker of hope igniting in my chase-down urge to mend the rift. Maybe I can explain, apologize? MIA's expression shifted, the corners of her lips tightening. You shouldn't have to apologize for pursuing your dreams. But if you think it'll help, then go for it. Just remember, he has to meet you halfway. As we talked, the conversation turned to laughter, stories of our shared past, but the laughter felt strained, forced. I could still feel the sharp edges of my brother's disdain lurking in the recesses of my mind. The weight of my family's legacy, wrapped so tightly around me, made it hard to breathe. When I returned home, the house was still eerily quiet. The memories of happier times seemed to echo in the corners of the rooms. I approached Caleb's door, knocking softly, my heart racing dangerously. I could hear movement behind it, but it only tightened the knot in my stomach. "Leave me alone." His muffled voice came through the wood, sharp like a blade. I stepped back, a sudden onslaught of rejection crashing into me. The emotional weight I was carrying felt unbearable. I didn't know how to fix this, yet I was desperate to try. As I turned to leave, my phone chimed again. It was a message from Caleb, and my heart stopped. "We'll talk later. I need some time to think about all this." Those few words sent a chill down my spine. It meant there was still tension, still unresolved feelings and unspoken truths. But it also meant there was a glimmer of hope for a conversation, however fraught it may be. Just then, my mother entered the hallway, her face pinched with worry. "What's going on?" I looked at her, conflicted emotions swirling inside. "I'm trying to figure everything out, Mom." Complicated. She stepped closer, sensing the turmoil beneath my words. "You know I love you, right? No matter what happens." I nodded, but as her words landed gently against my heart, I felt the restlessness of our family hanging between us like a fragile thread. Was love enough to bridge the chasm Caleb had built? I returned to my room, staring blankly at the walls. Yet, the day's events planted a seed of determination within. I would reach out again. I needed to confront the darkness, to understand what my brother feared. But as I lay down that night, a thought crept in, more frightening than all the others. What if that conversation only made things worse? As sleep tried to claim me, the harsh reality of my brother's judgment loomed over me like a shadow. The question seeped into my mind. What if our family truly was broken beyond repair? The morning light filtered softly through my curtains, illuminating the clutter scattered across my desk, unfinished projects, scribbled ideas, and the remnants of my once clear aspirations. Yet, all I could focus on was the impending conversation with Caleb that loomed like a dark cloud. I dreaded its weight, the potential fallout, but I also recognized it as a necessary step toward clarity. I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves, wrapping itself around me like a fresh start. I found an understated park nestled between rows of quaint houses, the kind of place where laughter filled the air and children chased each other under the watchful gaze of parents. I settled onto a bench, embraced by the vibrant scenery, but felt like an apparition watching life happen from a distance, detached, alone, and significantly heavier. My phone buzzed in my pocket, interrupting my spiraling thoughts. It was a message from Ethan, Caleb's fiancée. "Hey, I know things are tough right now, but can we chat? I've been thinking about you." The warmth in her message enveloped me, surprising me with a mix of gratitude and hope. Ethan had always been a rational anchor for Caleb, and though he had his reservations, he had never shied away from offering kindness. Taking a deep breath, I texted back, agreeing to meet. There was an unanticipated relief in my chest, as though I had taken a small but significant step toward mending the fragmented world around me. I made my way back home, carrying the warmth of that exchange with me, even as doubt still nagged at my mind. Later that afternoon, I met Ethan at a local coffee, a cozy spot where the atmosphere was as rich as the espresso it served. He was already seated when I arrived, his thoughtful gaze focused intently on his cup. "Thanks for coming," he said as I slid into the chair opposite him. "I've been wanting to reach out," I nodded, feeling a flicker of vulnerability. "I'm not sure how much more I can take right now." Ethan sighed. "I understand. Caleb is going through a lot himself, but I've seen the way he reacts to you. It's not entirely fair. He struggles with the pressure of our family's expectations, and his fear of inadequacy seems to manifest as anger towards you." His words resonated, and a lump formed in my throat. "It feels like he equates my success with his failure," I replied, fighting against the tears that threatened to spill. "But I never wanted to be a source of pain for him. Sometimes it's harder for those we love to see us shine," Ethan said gently. "You know, it's not always clear-cut. Label of success isn't universal. I just hope you both can find a way to communicate. Maybe you could both benefit from talking about your experiences instead of just your disappointments." Hope sparked within me, igniting a sense of boldness. "You really think it could help if I reach out again?" "Absolutely," he said with conviction. "And I'll be there to support both of you. Just be ready." I nodded and spent the remainder of our time discussing light-hearted memories, childhood anecdotes, and snippets of laughter that reminded me there was joy somewhere beneath the shadows. Ethan's kindness pulled me from my dark spiral, filling the void with a warm light as I returned home. I could feel a shift. I no longer felt solely burdened by the rift in our family. Talking to Ethan felt like having a bridge to my brother, an unexpected lifeline that could carry us both back to safer shores. That night, I decided I could no longer wait in the wings. I opened my laptop and began formulating the words I needed to say, to amend rather than apologize, to express rather than accuse. I crafted a message carefully, each word more intentional than the last, grounding myself in the belief that communication could be a salve for our wounds. With a deep breath, I hit send. The moment my finger left the touchpad, a wave of vulnerability rushed over me. It felt equal parts brave and foolish. Did I just throw a lifeline or a weight? Just as I was lost in contemplation, the unexpected ping of an incoming message broke the silence, jerking my heart into a frantic rhythm. But when I opened it, my breath hitched in my throat. It was a picture. A photo of a Forbes magazine cover, the bold lettering contrasting sharply against a sleek glossy photo of me, grinning and holding an award. My heart dropped. At first I felt proud. But then the surge of dread washed over me. Could Caleb have seen this? Was that why he hadn't responded to my message, retreating instead into his fortress of disapproval? Had my accomplishment, which I thought might inspire him, turned into another nail in my coffin as a family disappointment? My mind raced, imagining the endless implications tied to this moment. Would Caleb's feelings only intensify? Would his perception of me as a family failure solidify into unyielding truth? I sat in the dim light of my room, a tumult of emotions swirling within me. A knock on my door broke the tension. It was my mother, her face etched with concern. "I heard you. Are you okay?" The uncertainty loomed thick in the air, charged with unsaid words. I didn't know how to respond, but as I stood there, staring at the screen revealing my success, me face smiling back in defiance of our struggles, I felt one undeniable truth crystallize in my heart. I was determined to be more than what they labeled me. And finally, perhaps for the first time, I understood that our family's definition of success was not a label I needed to wear or carry like a burden. But before I could answer her, my phone buzzed again. I flipped it open, feeling both dread and anticipation. It was Caleb. "We need to talk. I can't pretend anymore, and I need to be honest with you." I froze, the weight of his words crashing over me like a rogue wave. I could feel the tidal wave of emotion surging within. Would this conversation finally bridge the gap? Or would it crack open the wounds we both tried to ignore? One thing was clear. Everything was about to change. The weight of Caleb's message lingered in the air, heavy with expectation and unspoken fears. The room felt stifling, and I paced absent-mindedly, each footfall echoing my mounting anxiety. The very foundation of my world was at a precipice, and I knew the conversation that loomed ahead could spill either into devastation or, dare I hope, understanding that I pressed my palms against the cool surface of the desk, as if seeking solace in its steadiness. With a quavering breath, I summoned the resolve to respond. When I typed, my heart racing as I hit send. Seconds turned into eternities, each tick of the clock amplifying my apprehension. The reply came swiftly. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Our usual spot? I closed my eyes, trying to find a mantra, some way to separate myself from the knot of fear tightening its grip around my gut. As night came, the shadows in my room danced in sync with my swirling emotions: frustration, resentment, hope, all fighting for dominance. In the early hours of the morning, sleep eluded me. I found resilience in documenting my feelings in my journal, a habit I had neglected in the chaos of our family crises. I poured my heart onto the pages, seeking to organize the tumult within. I wrote of the pride I felt for my achievements, the burden of expectations thrust upon me, and the desperate desire to reclaim my relationship with Caleb. With each stroke of ink, I felt a flicker of liberation spark within me. I was running towards clarity, determined this time to embrace every facet of my story, even the painful parts. The day passed in a haze of restless anticipation, punctuated by fleeting moments of joy. Ethan's spirit lingered as I found comfort in a friend's unexpected kindness, a barista who'd once known my family. He recognized me and wrote inspiration on my coffee cup in a flourish, igniting a faint smile against the backdrop of trepidation. It was an encouragement that nudged me toward remembering the essence of my journey, reinforcing that I was moving forward, regardless of how others perceived me. 6 p.m. approached. I stood in front of the mirror, grappling with my reflection, the flash of my Forbes cover flickering ominously in my mind. It was more than just a photo. It was a compass, an embodiment of my relentless pursuit of dreams. The glimmer of hope morphed into the weight of concern. Would that cover amplify the storm brewing between Caleb and me? When I arrived at our usual spot, a quaint bistro that twinkled with warm lights and the scent of fresh pasta, I found Caleb seated at a corner table, his gaze focused on his untouched glass of water. He looked older, wearied by the burdens he carried. I felt my heart flip, a blend of empathy and apprehension surged within me. Caleb, I greeted softly, lowering myself into the chair across from him. He met my eyes, his expression inscrutable, a mixture of vulnerability and the walls he had spent years building. Thanks for meeting me, he replied, his voice steady but edged with tremors. We need to address these growing distances between us. Yes, we do, I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest, ready to breach the surface of all those pent-up emotions. I've missed you, you know? It hurts to feel this divide. Caleb looked away for a moment, as if he were wrestling with demons of his own. You have to understand, seeing you succeed, it was like having a mirror held up to my failures. I felt the air thicken around us. The honest admission hung in the space between. It was scary but also grounding. You think I don't struggle? I reached out, my voice laced with yearning. Every achievement was a step I took to break free from the expectations instilled in us. But I can't continue without you in my corner. Caleb, that he finally met my gaze. His blue eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and anger. It's not that simple. I thought I could find my way without feeling overshadowed, without feeling like I'd lost everything by comparison. I never wanted that for you, I whispered, the sting of tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. We don't have to compete. What matters is that we lift each other up. I wish it were that easy, he muttered. But there was a glimmer of something deeper beneath his words, perhaps regret or longing for a brotherhood he desperately missed. I took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch as I searched for the right words. Then I glimpsed a familiar face through the window. Ethan stood just outside, waving his hand with a bright smile, his presence infusing the air with warmth. But that warmth shattered as I noticed the outline of a woman standing beside him, her face obscured by the evening glow. And then I recognized her, a distant figure from our childhood, who had always skirted the periphery of our family, now back in our lives after so long. My heart skipped a beat as she approached. Surprise! She called out, her tone too cheerful amidst the burgeoning tension. I heard we were having a family reunion of sorts. Caleb froze, his tension palpable. What is she doing here? He whispered, the trepidation in his voice sending a jolt through the air. In that split second, the fragile connection we'd begun forging felt threatened. I looked at both Caleb and Ethan, feeling the whirlwind of emotions spin wildly. What had been a path toward healing had suddenly become overshadowed by an unforeseen complication. Amplifying the already thick Tenziona storm was brewing once more. With a heart now heavy with uncertainty and resentment, I clenched my fists. I could feel the old family dynamics beginning to grip us as the past loomed darker than ever. I don't think this is the right time, I stammered, noticing the shifts in Caleb's demeanor, his walls rising again, fortified by the arrival of this unwelcome guest, and just like that, the hope I had nurtured ebbed away like the last light of day. Everything was about to change again, and I braced myself for the fallout of revelations yet unknown. The bistro, once a sanctuary of warm light and conversation, now felt cavernously hollow. The echo of laughter and clinking glasses faded into the background, leaving only the weight of Caleb's silence and the unwelcome presence of the stranger who had come crashing into our fragile moment. I turned my gaze to the woman, trying to piece together the memories that surfaced: a long-lost cousin, perhaps, or a friend from a time when our lives felt more interconnected. It had been years since I'd seen her, but something within me ached at that very instant, a warning that familiarity did not guarantee safety. "Hey, it's so good to see you all," she beamed, stepping fully into the glow of the bistro's lights. Her name danced at the edge of my memory, but I couldn't grasp it. "Marissa," Caleb said, his voice flat, barely a whisper, as if speaking her name brought a mix of pain and frustration. I could see his pulse quicken, the tension radiating from him like a heat wave. "Hello, Caleb. Is it true? You're getting married?" she chirped, blissfully oblivious to the visible shift in the room's atmosphere. I shot Caleb a sideways glance, hoping for a response, but he merely grimaced, his previous vulnerability recoiling under a shield of resentment. "Can you give us a moment?" I finally said, feeling a flood of protectiveness toward our conversation. "We were just— oh, come on. We're family, right?" Marissa interjected with an effortless laugh, oblivious to the jigsaw puzzle of emotions surrounding us. "You two always had such great chemistry. It's nice to see you catching up." "We were just talking about things that aren't particularly light," I replied sharply, my frustration inching upwards. Caleb's glare pierced through me as he shifted in his seat, torn between wanting to lash out and holding on to the delicate threads of our conversation. "It's fine. Let her join," he said finally, dropping his shoulders as if the added weight of Marissa's presence was too much to bear alone. The flutter of joy that blossomed in Marissa's eyes felt like betrayal. The very person who often hovered at the edges of our lives was now implementing herself right in the center of our storm. "Oh, I love a good family therapy session," she quipped, taking a seat beside Caleb without a beckoning. "Can we please talk about something else?" Caleb snapped, his voice rising in frustration, the tension again thickening like fog. Marissa's smile faltered, and for the first time, I noticed a crack beneath her cheerful demeanor. She glanced between us, her brow furrowing with concern. "What's got you both so riled up?" "I just came to offer some love, you know? It's rare to see you two together these days." "It's complicated," I said, my fists tightening on the edge of the table. "We're trying to figure some things out without interruptions." Her eyes widened, and the air felt heated with a sudden reckoning. "Is this about the Forbes cover? I saw it online. Everyone's talking about it. I mean, it's a huge deal." Caleb's face contorted, a new layer of resentment flaring. "So now, even from afar, I'm supposed to measure my worth against a goddamn magazine cover?" His voice trembled with emotion. The room grew heavy, the clinking of plates and distant conversations fading into an abyss as Marissa's oversight dug deeper into already sensitive wounds. "Caleb, we're not here to—" I began, but he cut me off, his pain unraveling. "No, but you are. How am I supposed to feel anything but overshadowed when every little achievement you make gets glorified while the fact that I'm still trying to find my place is met with crickets?" Marissa's attempt at levity crumbled, and I felt trapped in a whirlwind of emotions I could scarcely navigate. This is too much." My voice cracked as panic surged through me, visions of further division between us rising like water flooding a breached dam. "Maybe she should go," Caleb said quietly, a hint of venom in his words. "This isn't what I signed up for, and I don't need someone to dote on my failures any longer." The finality in his tone pierced through me like an icy dagger. I could barely breathe. The room felt smaller, the walls trapping all of us inside this momentum moment I had tried so hard to fill with hope now diluting into despair. "Caleb, wait." I reached across the table, trying desperately to reclaim the earlier connection that felt so close. I never wanted to be the success while you felt diminished. We can face this together. He flinched, leaning back, and for a fleeting second, I thought I saw uncertainty flicker in his eyes. It was there and gone in an instant, replaced with the hardness I was becoming all too familiar with. Maybe you should take a closer look at yourself, he said. The sharpness of his words a bitter refrain I hadn't anticipated. As Marissa looked on, a bewildered expression settling over her features, I felt a knot of frustration and confusion spiral within me. But before I could say anything else, a sudden movement caught my eye from across the street. The moment became surreal as I noticed a figure watching use another ghost from our past, peering from a shadowed distance. It was my father, standing near an old oak tree, his furrowed brow betraying a hint of recognition, mingled with longing. What was he doing here? My heart raced and time stumbled as I watched him turn on his heel, vanishing into the night as swiftly as he had appeared. A shroud of silence enveloped us, an emotional stain added to the escalating chaos. My chest tightened. Was he here for me? Were our unspoken ties about to intertwine with memories long buried? Caleb's attention shifted toward the door where I'd caught sight of the fleeting figure, and suddenly our past seemed ready to collide with our present. I knew then that the course of our struggle was about to deepen, drawing us further into a heart-wrenching tempest. How much longer are we going to ignore the real issues? The past doesn't just go away, I said softly yet decisively, the truth pulling at my heartstrings. But Caleb's gaze was fixed, locked on the spot where our father had stood moments ago, triggered by a recollection that felt too heavy to voice. We might just be facing the wrong direction, he whispered, unfolding a new chapter shrouded in the mysteries of loss and uncharted paths. Hope felt like a flickering flame, struggling against the winds of turmoil, and I felt the weight of impending revelations inch closer, waiting just beyond our reach. The atmosphere in the bistro grew denser, heavy with a cocktail of tensions and unspoken truths. Caleb remained fixated on the blurred outline of our father's retreating figure, his expression a haunting mix of anger, confusion, and a flicker of something deeper longing maybe? I could feel my heart pounding as if trying to match the frantic rhythm of our escalated emotions. Caleb, I said tentatively, testing the waters as I reached out for his hand, but he pulled it away abruptly. We can't just push everything aside. Seeing him it has to mean something. His jaw tensed, the remnants of vulnerability smashed beneath a resurgence of bitterness. What's the point? He snapped, glancing at Marissa who seemed caught between this familial clash and her well-intentioned disruptions. He wasn't there before. Why would he care now? Because people change. People can grow, I pleaded, desperately wanting to bridge this widening chasm. You don't have to carry this on your own. Marissa shifted in her seat, opening her mouth as if to speak, but the heaviness of unexamined feelings hung in the air, silencing her instincts. I could see her wrestling with how to be a force of kindness amidst our unraveling. Well, he's a phantom, right? Caleb said bitterly, just like he always was. I can't keep chasing shadows. The words felt like a stab. I had seen Caleb labor under the collapse of that relationship for years, yet the pain in his voice now struck a different chord. It echoed the abandonment I had felt in my own family, frayed not just by absence, but by the explosive weight of expectation and disappointment. I turned to Marissa, seeking her familiar warmth, hoping for some grounding in the turmoil. I don't think it's too late to reach out, I said to her softly. Maybe if we confronted these shadowy figures, figured out who we are without their expectations looming over us? In the silence that followed, Marissa's brow furrowed, her concern palpable. But what if it only brings more pain? She asked, her tone dropping to the seriousness of unwritten consequences. Then we face it together, I responded firmly, earning a surprised glance from Caleb. It was a truth I had always believed in: togetherness in chaos, an understanding tether that could anchor us amidst family storms. Yet deep down I could feel Caleb's resistance, like a dam holding back a flood of unresolved emotions, ready to burst in a way that felt unforgiving and wild. I don't know if I can do that, he whispered, more to himself than to us. Facing my father, I'm not who I wanted to be. I don't want him to see me this way. There it was, the mirror reflecting an unspoken fear. I longed to reassure him, to bridge that gap of self-doubt stemming from our childhood wounds. But I felt the enormity of what I was suggesting loom larger than any comforting words could dispel. You're stronger than you realize, I said, my voice warm with honesty. And if you don't face it, it will always be there, haunting every corner of your life. The flickering in his eyes returned, but it felt like a storm gathering rather than clearing. I can't keep dealing with your success either, he deflected, his voice sharp. Every step you take forward feels like a step back for me. The honesty in his statement struck with an unexpected potency. I could barely breathe as that realization tightened around my throat. My accomplishments, the Forbes cover that seemingly meant only pride, was a weight that he felt shackling him deeper into despair. I never wanted you to feel diminished, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought we could uplift each other. Marissa looked between us, her own eyes shining with unshed tears. This was more than a family split, it was generations of hurt finally crashing down into this singular moment. Suddenly, the bistro's door swung open, and a gust of wind swept through, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. The warmth flooded out and left behind a chill. A figure stepped in, shaking off a blue raincoat. It was old Mrs. Hanley, the retired schoolteacher of our youth, whose enigmatic kindness had always felt like a balm to my anxious heart. Apologies for barging in, she said with that outrageous charm that could lift any room. But I heard you all were having a little family meeting and thought I'd pop by. Heard a ruckus, I think they think him in a brawl. Laughter bubbled hesitantly in the space, the tension diffusing just slightly, as if her mere presence had the power to soothe us. But really I wanted to remind you, she continued, her voice cutting through the weight that clung to us. Love is a messy canvas. It can get chaotic and tangled, but even the finest artwork emerges from the storm. Caleb's expression shifted, just a notch, and in a universe of pain and uncertainty, her words gifted a small pocket of warmth. But as quickly as the hope emerged, it dimmed again beneath the pungent shadows of our unresolved fractures. We can figure this out, Caleb, I said, my heart racing with urgency. But we need to confront this together. Just then, as Mrs. Hanley smiled wide, her twinkling eyes crinkling with affection, a loud clattering echoed from behind. Marissa's phone had slipped from her pocket and skidded across the floor, bringing an unexpected buzz into our emotionally charged bubble. She picked it up, glancing quickly at the screen before her eyes widened in shock. I have to take this. Without waiting for reaction, she slipped away, leaving the air thick with anxious anticipation. My heart raced. What could have possibly transpired? Caleb's silence loomed, heavy upon us. In that moment I realized we were standing on the brink of revelation. Hope glimmering but dim and fear swirling beneath it, like a storm poised for disaster. As I waited for Marissa to return, a new dread coiled in my stomach. What if the call was something that brought more darkness into our lives? I could feel the weight bearing down as the two of us stood on the threshold of something monumental and terrifying. Time was about to unearth another surprise. Would we be ready to face the impending storm? Or would it scatter us further into the dark? The minutes stretched into an eternity as I sat across from Caleb, the silence between us tasting of unspoken fears. The din of the bistro faded, leaving only the quiet hum of flickering lights and the scent of coffee brewing in the air. It was surreal, the ghost of our family unfinished business lingering like an unwelcome guest, hovering just out of reach. My heart beat wildly in my chest, its rhythm echoing the growing tension. I wanted to reach out, to break the ice that clung to us, but I felt too much like an intruder in his world of hurt and disappointment. I watched Caleb's brow furrow, his gaze flicking around the room as if searching for a way to escape not just the bistro but the very anger that bubbled beneath the surface. What would it take for him to feel that he was enough on his own terms? That he didn't need to be overshadowed by the weight of my perceived success? I weighed my words with caution, unwilling to tip the precarious balance of our conversation toward a deeper rift. You know, I said cautiously, Mrs. Hanley was right. Love is messy. It's hard, especially when you expect every thread to knit perfectly together. He shifted in his seat but didn't respond. Caleb, if we reach out to Dad, it can't be about what he thinks of you, it has to be about us finding closure for ourselves. For our own sake, I pressed, willing him to see the glimmer of purpose buried beneath his pain. A faint smile flickered across his lips, a shadowy echo of the boy who once looked up to me with pride. Closure? Sounds like the perfect word for the mess we've created, he muttered, a hint of sarcasm urging me to further engage. And just when I thought I had found the right path, Marissa returned, her face a blend of excitement and trepidation as she quickly sank back into her chair. Okay, you might want to brace yourselves for this, she said breathlessly, her voice drawing Caleb's and my attention. What's going on? I asked, dread knotting in my stomach. She inhaled deeply, her excitement dimmed by the gravity of her words. That was my brother George. He just got a call about a family member nearby. Someone I didn't even know was still in town. What do you mean? Caleb asked, eyebrows furrowing further, the shift towards the unknown pulling him in despite his earlier resistance. Apparently, Grandma is in the hospital, not too serious, according to George, but her voice trailed off as the weight of what she was revealing began to sink in. We might have to go see her. My stomach dropped. The shadow of my childhood home loomed larger than before. My grandmother, the unwavering force of tradition and familial bonds, now stood at the center of swirling emotions. Would we be confronting her or our past when we crossed that threshold? Caleb looked skeptical, crossing his arms defensively. Why does that matter? Because, Marissa replied softly, it's a chance for us to reset our reality, to rebuild the narrative. If we're going to face Dad, maybe she's the bridge we need. I felt a faint flicker of hope, yet it battled fiercely with the trepidation knotting my insides. Was it a bridge? Or was it another chasm masked in benevolence? Do you think she'd even want to see us? Caleb said, his voice heavy with doubt. It made my heart ache to hear him speak of her with such dismissal, as if he felt his very existence was an affront to her expectations. Before I could respond, the bistro door swung open once more, letting in a gust of cold air intermingled with whispers of rain. Another figure stepped in, a man in a sharply tailored suit, his expression a palette of determined intent. My heart plunged further as I recognized him. Thomas, Dad's lawyer, the embodiment of everything unresolved. Caleb? Thomas called, his voice steady and ingratiating. Can we speak for a moment? The words hung in the air, and I witnessed Caleb tense, that familiar storm brewing once more. About what? He shot back, raising his chin defiantly. Your father, Thomas replied, his demeanor a blend of professional detachment and concern. He's requesting to speak with you. And you too, of course. His gaze swung pointedly toward me, and I felt the tension coil tighter, a ricochet of emotions crashing through me. Was this the moment of reckoning? Could we unearth the truths we had buried deep? Now that they were beckoning us back home? Marissa's gaze shifted between Caleb and Thomas, her eyes shining with unvoiced anxiety. He shouldn't just drop this on you, she murmured under her breath. But Caleb seemed frozen, caught in a snafu of turmoil. I could almost hear the battle raging inside him, a conflict between the yearning for connection and the urge to deflect any impending pain. Caleb, I whispered, searching for the right words, this is your choice. Whether that choice leads to pain or growth, it's yours to make. As I spoke, I felt my own heart racing. We were standing on the precipice of change, and I could sense the rippling energy of possibility crackle in the air. The path ahead remained shrouded, but inside the shadows, a chance for healing lingered. But just then, the vibrant bistro atmosphere shattered under the weight of Caleb's hesitation. Do I even want to see him? He asked, his voice a whisper caught in the tempest of emotions, and in that precarious moment, I felt the echoing question reverberate through my own core. Could we truly face the closed door of our past, armed only with flickering hope against the encroaching darkness? Would our encounters paint a new canvas? Or would it only drag us deeper into an abyss too tangled to escape? As I awaited his answer, time slipped away, and dread settled over us like an impending storm, thick, raw, and ready to break, as we stood on the brink of reckoning. The rain settled in a steady rhythm as it pattered against the bistro windows, making the world outside seem even dimmer. I could see the glint of streetlights reflected on the wet pavement, a mirror to the internal turmoil swirling within us. Caleb's silence hung heavy in the air, mixing with the tense atmosphere that Thomas had inadvertently stirred up. Caleb, I urged again, my voice a gentle thread in the weight of his indecision. Just a conversation. You don't have to agree to anything. But maybe it's time to confront the past. His fingers drummed against the table, a frantic melody of anxiety. What if it only digs up more hurt? He finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What if it changes nothing? Or it changes everything, Marissa countered softly, reaching for Caleb's hand across the table. You've been carrying this for so long, and you deserve a chance to find out. Though he looked reluctant, the warmth of her gesture seemed to break through his fortress of defenses. Just a crack, but enough for a shimmer of hope to seep in. Around us, life continued, plates clattered, laughter echoed, but we existed in our isolated world, holding our breath for Caleb's next move. I can't just forget all the years, he muttered, but I couldn't help but see a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes, a glimmer of the brother who used to smile unabashedly at the mention of family. The years don't have to define us, Caleb, I began, my heartbeat steadying as I kept my focus on him. We were both hurt, both trying to find our ways in this twisted legacy. But this time we get to choose how the story goes. We can reclaim our narrative. Reclaim it? Caleb scoffed lightly, the sarcasm running like a current beneath the surface. Sounds like wishful thinking. Just then, Thomas cleared his throat, glancing between us like an eager audience waiting for a show to start. I understand this is difficult, he said, his tone betraying a hint of empathy. But your father is unwell and he wants to talk. To explain. Perhaps there's more at play here than you're aware of. Explaining what? Caleb shot back, a storm brewing in the blue of his eyes. The years of disappointment or just more empty excuses? Before Thomas could respond, the sudden jingle of the door caught our attention. A woman, soaked from the rain yet defiantly smiling, stepped inside, cradling an umbrella that dripped water onto the floor. My heart skipped when I realized it was Sarah, one of Grandma's closest friends, a familiar face from childhood gatherings who had always held a bond with our family. She spotted us and made her way over, wiping droplets from her forehead. I couldn't believe my luck. The universe must have conspired for me to find you all here. There was an unexpected warmth in her presence, a comforting nostalgia that brushed against the frigid tension in the bistro. I just came from the hospital, she continued, oblivious to our storm of emotions. Your grandmother is stable, and I think she'd love to see you both. Caleb shifted uncomfortably, the flicker of recognition in his expression battling against skepticism. Why would she want to see us? After everything, because family is not just about shared blood. It's about moments we create, Sarah replied gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. And I've seen her heart. It's as big as her stories. She has always believed in second chances. A whisper of hope stirred within me, merging with the warmth of her words. Maybe seeing her could bring some clarity, I pointed out, half pleading. We owe it to ourselves to at least give it a shot. But what if it's just another doorway to more pain? Caleb's voice cracked, the veneer of defiance falling away to unveil a raw wound. In that moment, I understood his hesitation. It wasn't just about our father or the past, it was the fear of stepping into unknown territory where pain and healing tangled like vines in a forest. We don't know unless we try, Marissa chimed in, her grip on my hand tightening as we stood united in our mission to encourage Caleb. And this could be a chance for you to find peace, a chance for the three of us to rewrite pieces of our story. He took a deep breath, the weight of our intertwined pasts palpable in the air. Just as I thought he was going to relent, Caleb pulled his arm away, his resolve reinvigorated. I don't think I'm ready, he said firmly, the rain outside cascading in rapid droplets against the glass, thundering like the chaotic heartbeats in the room. A wave of despair washed over me. Caleb, I started, but I felt the words slip away as a deep-set anxiety creased his brow. Then came the phone, ringing shrilly in his pocket, a familiar ringtone that seemed to amplify the turmoil spinning around us. He pulled the device out, eyes widening at the screen. It's him, he said quietly, jaw tightening as he stared at the name. There was a tension that crackled between us, echoed in the silence of the bistro as the phone continued to ring, each chime peeling away the layers of the silence like delicate petals from a flower. The weight of the moment was suffocating, and all eyes turned from Caleb to Thomas. Maybe it's time you make that choice, he suggested. His voice even a stranger caught in a family's tempest. Caleb hesitated, caught between the past and an uncertain future. Then came an unexpected gesture. Marissa squeezed his hand tightly, her eyes pleading with an unyielding strength. It was now or never. As Caleb looked up, a flicker of defiance sparked within his gaze, and I felt hope wade back toward the forefront, braving the storm threatening to drown us all until, just as I thought a choice would be made, he silenced his phone, the unresolved any moment, drawing us deeper into the chaos of our shattered family ties. In that instant, with a heart heavy yet buoyed by flickering connections, I understood we were still caught in a tempest, and the storms we had to weather were far from over, long shadows stretching toward an ambiguous horizon ripe with uncharted emotions. And in that moment of uncertainty, I realized nothing would ever truly be the same again. The storm outside matched the tempest of thoughts swirling inside the bistro, each droplet a reminder of the years we'd lost to bitterness and regret. I watched as Caleb tucked his phone away, a scarred expression etched deep within his features, a blend of frustration, fear, and perhaps a flicker of something softer. "Caleb, please," I whispered, desperate to breach the widening chasm formed by unspoken words and unresolved grievances. Marissa's hand still held his, a lifeline amidst the swirling chaos. But he averted his gaze, stepping away from the table as if retreating to a safer place tucked away from the rawness of our shared history. "I need a moment," he said, wild-eyed with the conflicting turmoil. Thomas watched him go, arms crossed as if preparing for the repercussions of a particularly difficult decision. "Sometimes it's harder for those who love us to confront the truth than it is for us to hear it," he murmured, addressing Marissa and me, who exchanged glances. "I just want him to see that it's okay to let go," Marissa replied, her voice steady despite the tremor that threatened to surface. To heal. As we sat there, I could feel the tension building, a silent war of words between Caleb's stubbornness and our shared desire for peace. With every moment, I sensed the decision ticking away like a metronome, counting down to something inevitable. The door chimed again, and a sudden rush of cold air accompanied another visitor who exuded warmth. Sarah, my high school best friend, her auburn curls both comforting and familiar, stood there shaking off her umbrella. "There you are. I've been looking for you," she called, her eyes brightening as she spotted us. "Did you come in out of the rain just to rescue us?" I laughed, though it felt hollow against the shadows looming over Caleb's absence. "That I came because I heard your grandma was in the hospital, and I figured you could use a pal." She plunked down in the seat beside Marissa. "What's going on? You all look like you just survived an earthquake." "More like an emotional tsunami," Marissa replied, a hint of laughter breaking through despite the heaviness. "Caleb's really struggling with some family issues." Sarah's expression softened, her empathy palpable. "I know how tough family can be. Sometimes the strongest among us don't know how to ask for help." "Help," I murmured, tasting the word like an unfamiliar dish. It felt insurmountably an elusive concept tangled in the wreckage between Caleb and our father. What if Briggs doesn't want help? What if the wounds run too deep? Sarah shrugged, her smile still bright. "Then you fight for him. Just like you all did for each other when it mattered most." But even her optimism felt like fragile glass in a violent storm. The heavy silence wrapped around us again as the door swung open one last time. Caleb stepped back inside, soaked but resolute, an apprehensive shadow across his face. "I need to call him," he declared, voice hoarse. "What?" I exclaimed, my heart racing. "Caleb, are you sure?" He nodded, biting down hard on the bottom lip, an old habit of his when confronted with a difficult choice. It almost felt like a prelude to surrender. "I just want to know why. What happened that drove everything apart?" "You're ready?" Marissa asked, her eyes brightening. "I have to be," Caleb answered, each word laden with a finality that echoed through the crowded bistro. The atmosphere froze as he punched in the number, the world around us slipping away. The ringing continued, stretching taut between us, and for an agonizing moment, we were all suspended in time, the weight of uncertainty crashing against the glimmer of hope. "One more chance for understanding," I muttered under my breath, sending a silent prayer into the universe. Then Caleb's expression shifted. The phone connected, and I watched disbelief flicker in his blue eyes as a voice came through the line. "Caleb?" It was our father's voice, steady yet strained, breaking through the barrier Joshua had erected for so many years. "I've been waiting for your call." Just like that, the air thickened. Each breath felt suffocating, the energy crammed around us suddenly splintering as a new wave of emotions crashed against the shore of our vulnerability. "Why?" Caleb's voice trembled, cracking like a fragile vessel. "Why did you never try harder? You just let us go." "I had my reasons, son. I never wanted to hurt you." Their voices echoed against each other, building only incomprehension, exchanging demands. But suddenly, as if the winds had shifted dramatically, I felt a chill travel down my spine when the silent bistro erupted into noise behind the counter where the barista had been listening. She dropped a cup, and the shattering echoed louder than our shared agony, an unexpected witness to our hidden family secrets. "What if this is all meant to come undone?" said Sarah, her face pale as she reached for Marissa's hand. Then the door swung open once again, revealing a silhouette wrapped in a long coat, drenched and determined. Our breaths hitched collectively as we recognized the unmistakable figure stepping into the light. "Father, I need to tell you something," Caleb murmured into the phone, his voice strained and trembling as he shifted his gaze toward the newcomer. "Not now, Caleb." The man's deep voice barely filled the room before Caleb's eyes widened further, frozen in disbelief mixed with profound frustration. As I stood between the two worlds, one burdened by the past and another looming with ominous surprises, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to unravel. Old wounds would be ripped open, and the truth would come tumbling out like jagged shards of forgotten memories. The finality of that moment clutched my throat in a vice, the tangle of heartstrings pulling tighter, edging us closer to the cacophony that we had fought to suppress for so long. And the chaotic storm outside raged on, whispering through the dimmed windows what we all refused to acknowledge. Sometimes the strongest truths can only emerge from the ruins of our shattered family. The storm outside raged on, each raindrop a reminder of the tumultuous emotions swarming within me. Caleb stood across from me, his face caught in a warfare of vulnerability and defiance, the phone still pressed against his ear. I could see the trembling in his hands as he clutched it like a lifeline, willing to confront the very man who had shaped our childhood wounds with his absence and neglect. "Why now?" Caleb's voice cracked, a raw sound that cut through the din of the bistro. My heart ached on his behalf, was finally confronting the shadow that had loomed over both our lives for too long. "You let us grow up thinking no, believing that we were not enough, that our dreams didn't matter to you." There was a palpable pause on the other end, silence laden with the weight of years unspoken. I held my breath, desperate for anything that could stitch together the frayed fabric of our relationship. "I know I've made mistakes," the voice on the line replied, heavy with regret. "But I never stopped loving you." Caleb's expression shifted, a storm waging within him that mirrored the torrential rain outside. "Love isn't just a word. It's actions. Every little thing you didn't do says a lot more." He breathed, pain weaving through his words like thread through a tapestry of hurt. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes as I watched my brother navigate this treacherous path, laden with walls he had built through the years. That I wanted to reach out, to ground Caleb in the present, but the distance between us felt immense. Instead, I tightened my hands around the edge of the table, letting the pressure anchor me to the moment. "Caleb," I said softly, my heart pounding in my chest, "you're stronger than you think. Show him strength by acknowledging how this has hurt you. That's the only way to forge a path to healing." But even as I spoke, I feared he might retreat into his protective shell, an instinct he had honed far too well. My heart ached to see him wear his wounds like armor. Would he listen? Could he find a way to speak his truth without pushing our father away further? "Why do you need to hear this now?" Caleb pressed, standing firm even as the tears gathered, shimmering vision blurring the edges of his resolve. "What changed?" I could see his breath quicken as he awaited the response, the tremors of betrayal still fresh in the heavy air. "Because I realize now that I can't fix the past," our father said, unease threading through his words. "But I want to try. I want to make things right." Somehow I felt the bolt of electricity crackle around the room, the tension shifting like unfinished notes hanging in the air. My mind raced. Could there be redemption? The thought fluttered in my heart, slowly unfurling into something that felt like hope. This was the moment we had been waiting for, hadn't we? "I can't forgive you until you understand how deep the impact of your absence runs," Caleb replied, his voice resolute despite the tremor. "Every step of success I took was met with silence. At family dinners, your absence hung like a ghost over us, overshadowing everything. I became afraid of my own achievements." That I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of those words, the remnants of a painful truth that shattered the very foundation of our lives. I could see the ghost of guilt flicker across Caleb's features. He had always fought with shadows, battling inadequacies that he hadn't fully grasped until now. "Caleb," I could hear their father's voice, gravelly and laden with guilt. "I was never there. I see that now. I can't change what I did, but I want to be part of your lives again. If you'll let me." Caleb's guarded expression softened, the barrier he had built so firmly beginning to waver under the weight of our father's admission. Hope danced in his eyes, mingling with fear like an inseparable pair. As we both navigated through this storm, we realized the truth had a way of surfacing. It bared the raw edges of a fracture but also signaled the beginning of reconciliation. "I don't know if I can let you back in," Caleb said finally, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Trust was lost long ago. But it's not too late for the future either. My heart raced, feeling the weight of those words ripple through me. A realization struck, making it suddenly clear that growth could blossom in the cracks. A new definition of love was emerging in a way that felt almost palpable. You don't have to put everything in the past behind you in one moment, I replied, my heart swelling as the words intertwined with the moment's gravity. It's okay to move forward one step at a time. After all, healing is not a hurdle, it's a journey. As the rain continued to drum down with intensity outside, the storm within us slowly transformed. I caught Caleb's gaze, a silent understanding passing between us in that fleeting moment. With one nod, he signaled his willingness to embrace that journey, a decision marked by a flicker of hope. Even as we stood at the precipice of change, chaos faded into the backdrop of the growing trust we were trying to rekindle. Let's start brick by brick, I found myself whispering, feeling the energy in the bistro shift once more, as if the very air were on the cusp of transformation. We can write a new story, one where all of us belong. Unafraid to be seen and known as we prepared to brave the uncertain waters ahead. Mrs. Hanley's words echoed softly in my heart. Love is messy, but it is also the very thing that can guide us home. And sometimes, amidst all the tumult, it's the remnants of the turmoil that help us stitch ourselves back together. The scars a testament to our relentless journey. With a tentative smile, Caleb raised his phone, a glimmer of courage igniting between us. Okay, I'll see what he has to say. The rain poured harder outside, matching the rush of my heart. Here we were, standing at the threshold of change, ready to reclaim not just his story but our own. As I caught that small spark flickering in Caleb's eyes, I felt a warmth enveloping me, a reminder that hope thrives even in the aftermath of despair. And just like that, a new door began to swing open. It was time to embrace the unknown, knowing that we were finally, irrevocably, ready to heal and the finale of our shared journey. As I looked at Caleb's transformed smile, I understood our story was far from over, it was just beginning. Sometimes it takes the storms of our past to remind us of the strength in our bonds, finally drawing us closer to the ones we love, rekindling the light that had dimmed for too long. In that moment beneath the rain-soaked sky, I realized that we weren't just rewriting our story. We were rebuilding the very foundation of what it meant to be family again. And right there, amidst our messy narrative, we had discovered the most profound truth of all. Love reserves its greatest power for those brave enough to embrace it.